Hola, hola. Welcome to Dímelo with me, Claudia Pagan, where I talk to people in the sports world about their jobs, passions, and challenges. We have fun, we get personal, and sometimes it feels like a therapy session, but don't worry, it's only good fun. Hello, we are reviving this podcast. I've got a similar but also new plan for it. So let's do some introductions, huh? Hi, my name is Claudia Pagan. I'm a sports reporter and host. Currently, I work for CBS Sports on the Golazo Network, and then I also do some other stuff. Prior to this, I was with DC United, a team in MLS, professional soccer here in the US. I was with them for 9 years. So I'm gonna introduce myself, but also tell my story as to how I got here, so that when you're listening to all the future episodes, you know who I am. So let's do that, shall we? I'm trying not to go on tangents because that's what I do, which is bad. But anyways, let's start with listen, I've tried this so many times and I just keep rambling, so I'm hoping that this is actually a good take. But you know what? I'm trying to make it sound so perfect, and I just want it to feel like we're having a conversation in my living room. So I was born and raised in Bowie, Maryland. My family, though, is from Puerto Rico. My mom is from Carolina. My dad is from Rio Piedras. I still have a good chunk of family on the island. So I still go back. I try to go back once a year at least. But growing up, I spent all my summers there. I even did summer camps there. Yes, I am a summer camp kid. I'm also an aftercare kid. If you know what it is, you know what it is. If you don't worry about it. But maybe that, maybe you hear that and you're like, okay, her personality explains it all. So two things. I'm going to talk about how I got into soccer, because right now soccer is what I cover 24/7. It's my favorite sport. I grew up playing soccer and I cover it now for work full time. But also I'm going to tell you how I got into journalism and all of that. So how I got into soccer, I played soccer growing up. I played all sports growing up. Like I said, I was in camps every summer. Every single week was a new camp, a new sport. Tennis camp, soccer camp, ice skating, gymnastics camp, ¿qué más? Whatever sport you think, there'd be like a camp that's just sports, and then you do like a new one every single day. I even did tennis and soccer camps in Puerto Rico, I think. I know I definitely did tennis once. So, and then I would always just play all sports with my dad. I did karate growing up, karate growing up. I had other requirements that I needed to get my black belt as a 7th grader, and I stopped because I'm dumb. I did stop because then I started doing a lot more, like focusing a lot more on soccer, but I am still really upset with myself for doing that, because who knows where I'd be right now if I had continued. But anyways, that's not the purpose of this. So that's how I got into sports. Soccer was always my main sport. I started playing travel soccer when I was 8 years old, and I went all the way up until age 18. Right when I went to college, because I knew I didn't want to play professionally or anything like that. I didn't even want to play soccer in college. So I stopped there, but I played travel soccer for 10 years. And then how I got into journalism. So when I was in middle school, I would get 2 recesses a day, because I had regular recess and then I had aftercare recess. So aftercare is when your parents can't pick you up at like the normal time whenever school is let out, which is at like 3, which is hella early. If parents are working until 5, how the hell do you pick up your kid then? So I was in aftercare. So then my parents would pick me up at like 5:30. So you just stay at school for a while afterwards, and you would get recess then as well. Both recesses, I would stay in and read books. My dad would take me to the library every single week. I'd get 7 books, and I'd read 7 books a week. That's right. Nerd alert. So I started off loving reading. And that led me to writing my own stories then. fictional. Everything was fictional. I like fictional books. I like writing fictional books. And I started writing my own, and I was like handwriting it. And then all the girls, we would pass around my notebook with I never finished a story, but the story that I was currently writing, we would pass around the notebook between all the girls in the class. And they would read it. And then my best friend, one of my best friends in middle school, she said that she was going to be my editor. Cecilia, she ended up being my college roommate as well. She is if I'm not mistaken, a neurologist. She graduated med school last year. You go, girl. You definitely don't have time to be my editor if I want to become one. But you know what? Who knows? She was always my biggest supporter with all that. Our parents would take us to Borders. You remember Borders? Yeah, like Barnes & Noble, Borders. Our parents would take us to Borders when we were in high school, leave us there. We would just read books and then get picked up. And that was our hangout sessions. So definitely, I'm really outing myself right now. So I would actually post my work online as well, and it would get a good amount of views, and people would be like, all right, like, keep going. I want to know what's the next chapter. And that was really, really cool. And then I just stopped. I don't remember why. I think just life of a high schooler. I just stopped. So, but my obsession with reading continued in high school. So I was a good kid. I would get A's and B's. I was a good kid. I wouldn't get in trouble a lot. But the two things that I always got in trouble for in high school were, one, my uniform wasn't proper. I went to an all-girls private high school. So my skirt was I would always roll it up and it would be a little too short. And then the second thing was I'd get in trouble for reading. I would put my books like on top of my textbooks and then pretend to be reading the textbook, and I'd actually be reading my book. I risked it for a book that I couldn't get away from. Yeah. So that kind of describes who I am. So with all of that, I then took journalism class. I took journalism class in high school, like my last 2 or 3 years. That's half of your high school career. So it started off as a newspaper the first 2 years, and then it turned into a magazine. So I got a taste of both, and I loved telling stories. Storytelling, at the end of the day, no matter how much my career has changed, it's always been about storytelling, no matter how I've done it, if it's social media, if it's writing, if it's through video, etc., etc. I love storytelling, so I applied to journalism school at the University of Maryland. UMD was always, always, always my number one school because that's where my parents went. That's where they met. They met at the University of Maryland. I went to the University of Maryland. My brother went to the University of Maryland, so we're a family full of terps. I got into the journalism school. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I cried like a baby. And so that led me to journalism school. Before I even stepped on campus for the first day my freshman year, I had already joined like 1 or 2 publications because I was so freaking excited. I joined like a health and fitness magazine because I was also really into health and fitness. And then I think it was like kind of more so of like a female type of online publication as well as what I joined. And I had stopped playing soccer by this point, but I still, love sports, obviously. And then sophomore year of college, this guy that I had met at orientation had asked me, hey, like, do you want to help create some content for the basketball team at Maryland? They're looking for people. And if you don't know University of Maryland very well, like, football is not the number one sport there. It's basketball. So this was a huge thing. Like, really? Like, this is pretty cool. So they wanted to do content on the side. So they had like a couple of us students helping film and post stuff on social media because they wanted some more coverage. So I started off with just being the videographer. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So how it used to be at the University of Maryland, it's changed, but how it used to be was when you're a journalism major, you're either multi-platform or you're broadcast. And I was multi-platform because I thought I wanted to write feature pieces in magazines. Yeah, that's definitely not how it turned out. I'm on TV now. But So I didn't know what to do with like filming. I'm like, yeah, I can hit start and stop. So sure, I'll do it. And then in front of the camera was another student. She was like the student reporter and she was interviewing the players. And then not too long after that, she left the school. And then they were like, all right, Claudia, you're going to be the student reporter. Go on camera. I'm like, what? But I will say that before they put me on camera, I had already been thinking about how cool it would be to go on camera and to be able to do storytelling. So I was kind of prepped for when I had to do that. But listen, for the first stand-up that I had to do on camera, I locked myself in a room. I made sure all the windows were blacked out. I put a teleprompter on my phone, put it on top of the camera because I couldn't memorize even a single sentence. It took me 45 minutes to do one hit, and the hit was probably like 5 sentences. It was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do. I'm sure I might be able to dig up the footage if I really wanted to. So from there, I covered the men's basketball team for years. I did game previews, I did post-game interviews, and then once and all of this went up on their social media. I would film myself lots of times. Sometimes I had help. I would usually, though, film myself, edit it. Ooh, excuse me, I'm burping. And I would post it. Yeah, I did everything from start to finish. And I would film like the media scrums. But it was really cool because eventually I worked myself up to get to a point where I was getting the first player interview immediately after the game. So when I graduated in 2017, I got a job as a production assistant at the University of Maryland in their broadcast and video department, covering all university sports, so specifically sports. And so I was a production assistant. So I did like all the stuff behind the scenes, but then they also let me keep doing what I was doing with basketball, but I also got to do that with all 19 sports at Maryland. So I was kind of like the on-camera social media host for all UMD sports, which was really cool. I mainly focused on basketball and men's basketball, men's soccer, but I did do every single sport at one point, even like golf. Yes. Which was super cool. So during that time in 2016, summer of 2016, so while I was still in college, I was at Maryland from 2013 to 2017. Summer of 2016, I got a summer video internship at DC United. DC United was a team that I grew up supporting. It's the local professional team in like the DMV area. And my dad used to take me to DC United games, those orange seats at RFK. I never got to be a part, because I was too young at that point. I never got to be a part of like the moving stands. Oh, I would have loved to. But I always think of DC United, iconic orange seats. That's what I think about, RFK. So I got an internship there, summer of 2016. I finished out the season with them. And then 2017 and 2018, I was a game day freelance videographer. So I kind of kept doing what I had done during my internship, but it was just game days, and I would go film the game with my own camera and then give them the footage so that they could create stuff for social media. And so during that time, I had then graduated and gotten my job at University of Maryland. So I was doing both. I didn't have a single week. I am now at a point where I do not have actually have my weekends to myself. And this is 2024 that I'm talking now. Well, now we're in 2025. But since 2014, I have never had a single weekend off. Never. And when I was working at the University of Maryland covering all the sports, we had multiple sports a week. Like there would be some days where we're even doing 2 games a day. Because you'd have volleyball, then the next day you'd have basketball, especially when you overlap from fall to winter and then winter to spring sports. Like that was rough. Soccer one day, basketball the next day, a volleyball midday match. Like it was a lot. I put in like 70, 80 hours a week when I was in that Maryland job. So then we get to the beginning of 2019. DC United is like, all right, well, this girl's not going anywhere. Let's hire her. That's how I assume that this conversation went behind closed doors. And then they offered me a job to do filming filming and editing, and then also getting to be on camera as a DC United reporter, club reporter. Dream come true. An absolute dream job. So from 2016 to 2024, I was with DC United. It's a 9-year journey. 9 years. Almost an entire decade with a club. And it was incredible. It was incredible. I've since moved on just because that's how my career has gone. But that's what you hope for, right? You hope to continue progressing. And I learned so much when I was at DC. So like I said, I didn't have I didn't learn broadcast. I didn't learn broadcasting in college. I didn't learn how to write a script. I didn't learn how to talk on camera. I didn't learn how to carry yourself on camera, how to dress for your hits. I didn't learn any of that. And at the end of 2019, near the end of 2019, I got to do my first stuff on TV with DC United. And bless to all the people that helped me throughout the way and helped me navigate the broadcast world. A world that I completely did not know too much about, but I was doing the research also myself. Let me say that. I put in a lot of work myself as well as getting help from other people. I did put in a lot of work myself. I was watching tons of broadcasts. I was seeing how other women were carrying themselves on TV. I was seeing the manner in which they would talk, the emphasis that they would put on certain words and all that stuff. So I did do a lot of work myself as well. And so I got my first opportunity to do TV with DC United. So if you don't know much about MLS right now, all their broadcasts are on Apple TV. But they used to be each team dictated their own broadcast. So your match day broadcasts were on local TV. So on top of being a social media host for DC United, I also then got to do the TV stuff. And so I was the host of the show on NBC Sports Washington, which is a really big network. And I also hosted our pregame coverage, and I did sideline reporting. And sometimes I would translate live post-game interviews from Spanish to English, porque yo también hablo español. Si no sabían, yo hablo español. Como caribeña, como puertorriqueña, pero hablo español. Okay? Do I need to put captions here? Do I need to do translations in case you aren't too familiar with the Caribbean accent? I've done sit-down interviews with players in both English and Spanish as well. I traveled with DC United as well throughout all these years to do either my TV hits or to continue filming and editing videos for social media. I've hosted several events with them, including the press conference of Wayne Rooney being announced as DC's head coach. I was there when he was the player. I was there when he was the coach. And honestly, all of that is not even half of it. So I've done lots of things that you could think about, almost everything that you can think about. I've done it with the club. And that led to then in 2022, I started getting freelance opportunities, and that really grew in 2023. In 2023, I did some stuff with Telemundo. I covered the Kentucky Derby and Preakness, which was really cool, but also very difficult. Spanish it's my second language. And then you ask me to cover a sport that I don't know much about, like, holy shit, that was hard. But it was so much fun. And 2023 is also when I started doing some freelance work for CBS Sports on the Golazo Network. So the Golazo Network is a part of CBS Sports, but it's a 24/7 streaming network of solely soccer. So there's different shows, and then they also have the rights to several different leagues across the world. So that leads me into 2024. 2024 was a really big year for me. I started off the year, well, let me say, in 2023, I was lost. 2023, Apple TV came in and took all the match day rights of all MLS teams. So after spending so long working on my goal to being on TV, it kind of felt like it was taken away from me in a way. And I was so lost in 2023. I didn't know what to do. yes, I was very fortunate to still be employed by DC United. I was still helping host events. I was still doing content for social media, but I felt a bit lost in a way. And in 2024, I decided I'm going to effing do something about it. You can't keep crying about this. Effing do something. So at the beginning of 2024, I launched this podcast. And it's crazy how much my life has changed since. I launched this podcast March of 2024. I spent January planning it. I spent February filming a bunch of episodes and launched in March. And I went March and April, I put out a couple episodes. And then in May, I made the decision to become a full-time freelancer. It was one of the scariest decisions I have ever made. I was scared shitless because I had absolutely no idea if I was even going to be able to get work. So I made the decision to become a full-time freelancer because, as I said, I was feeling pretty lost in what I was doing at the moment. I felt that there was more that I could be doing in my life. I felt like I should have been growing more in my career. And I also felt like it was a time where I should explore more options than just DC United. And the work that I had been doing with CBS Sports had been really picking up. And I got to a point where I would have to tell them no because I still had my full-time job with DC United. So I knew that I was hoping that I would at least I would be able to go up to CBS Sports once or twice a month. And that would be enough to cover my bills while I then looked for other work, other freelance work to keep me occupied. And it took me a good long while to make this decision. And once I made it, I actually am very fortunate to have never regretted that decision. It was exactly what I needed to get to the next step of my career. And without realizing it, I became a full-time freelancer in the most perfect moment because it was the summer of soccer. The summer of soccer, and I got so many opportunities to do so much cool stuff. So, mind you, all throughout this time, I was still going up to CBS Sports to be on Morning Footy. Morning Footy is an 8 to 10 a.m. show. We talk worldwide soccer, but it's really chill, which is one of my favorite parts. It's so much fun. It's a morning show. You get to just be chill. You get to have fun while you talk footy. And also in the summer, in June, I went to the soccer tournament, aka TST in North Carolina. It's where a bunch of teams, there's a men's tournament and there's a women's tournament, and they compete to win $1 million prize. There's $1 million prize for the men's, there's $1 million prize for the women's. $2 million. Insane. I got to work with Luis Nani's team I was their videographer, and then I also edited videos for them to go up on social media. I was embedded with the team for 2 weeks because we made it all the way to the finals. We won every single game except that last one. We were so close to the $1 million. We even had to fill out like tax forms. I think it was like the W-9 or whatever the hell it is. I don't think it's a W-2. Whatever it is, a W-9 form. We had to fill that out the morning of the final, and I was like, ugh, this is bad juju. I don't want to do this right now. It was incredible. So the soccer tournament, this was the second year that they did it. It's like a soccer festival. And there's a lot of big names on the team, like Nani, what's his name? Sergio Agüero had a team. His team just looked like a bunch of people that they were just a bunch of Argentines along with him. ¿Quién más? There was really, ¿cómo se llama este tipo? The NFL player, Watt, JJ Watt. And then his wife, Kalia Watt, played for the women's. They're owners of Barnsley, a team over in England. There were other really big names. Pat McAfee. There we go. Sorry. Brain fart. He had a team as well. So it's a bunch of, Echar 85. So there's a bunch of big names, even if it's guys that haven't played professional soccer, and then mixed in with really, really skillful players. And the people that are most successful in TST are the players that play indoor soccer, because TST, is it 5v5, 6v6? One of those two. I think it's 6v6. I think it's 6v6. I should have done my research before I did this. So much time has passed since the tournament. But it's a small field. So the guys that play indoor soccer, they're used to it, because you can't just toss long balls. You have to actually really be super skillful with the ball. So our team, Nani's team, was full of MASL players, which is Major Arena Soccer League, an indoor soccer league here in the US. And then on the other side in the finals was a team, I can't remember their names for the life of me right now, but they were made up of a bunch of indoor soccer players. So I got to do that. And then that led into the Euros and Copa America happening at the same time. And I got to go and host watch parties. I got to host watch parties at a bar called Legends in New York City. Super, super fun. I haven't done much hosting of live events like that, but it was a really cool experience. You just really interact with the crowd, and you got to get them going, because sometimes they're quiet and they don't want you to be there, and you got to make them have fun. And then that led into me then working for the DirecTV Soccer Champions Tour. So it was Man City, AC Milan, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Chelsea were the 5 teams that were a part of this tournament. And I was working specifically with the tournament. So I got to create social media content and be the face of it for their social media posts, for their social media content. Throughout the span of 2.5 weeks, I went to 4 games. Now, mind you, Real Madrid was my grandpa's team, so that means it's my team. And this was my first time watching any of these teams play. So I went to Man City versus AC Milan at Yankee Stadium in New York City. I went to AC Milan versus Real Madrid at Soldier Field in Chicago. I went to a clásico, Real Madrid versus Barcelona at MetLife Stadium in Jersey. And then the last game was Barcelona versus AC Milan at M&T Bank in Baltimore. So I got to end in Baltimore. I lived in Virginia, so it was right by home. It was incredible. And there were so many things that happened during this time. Oh my goodness. I had a huge hives outbreak after the first game. So for 4 days afterwards, I was just in the hotel room recovering and traveling. And we went to Real Madrid practice, and my face, it was just completely swollen. I made a fool of myself in front of Christian Pulisic and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, because we went to an AC Milan press conference, and I messed up, and then Zlatan said, "You're fired," and I was like, oh God, but he said it jokingly. It was great. It was freaking great. God, that was so embarrassing. But listen, it's only embarrassing if you let it be embarrassing. And I actually started, because this was a press conference, and I actually started, before I said my question, I started off with a joke. So then that's why he then joked around. So it led to great conversation and great banter and a great moment. I was definitely ready to chill out after all of this, though. Because like I said, between all of this, I was also going from DC up to Connecticut to work with CBS Sports for morning footy. Oh, and then also during this entire time, I had become then a freelancer for DC United. So I was still doing DC United home games, mind you. I did not sleep much during this time at all. So that has all led me to where I am now. A crazy summer of soccer, having so much freaking fun. I was paying rent for an apartment that I wasn't even in. I'd be home once every 3-4 weeks. And in October, I started working with CBS Sports Golazo full-time on morning footy and also doing some hosting, but mainly what I do is morning footy, the 8 to 10 a.m. show. So I wake up at like 5:30, people, and I am a night owl. So I've really had to adjust. I try to go to bed by 9:30 p.m. every single night. So I've had a really fun journey. And I've met so many incredible people in this industry. And I've learned so much about myself. And I've put myself through a lot. And I wouldn't take a single thing back. I love the journey that I've been on. And, you know, I think sometimes we get so caught up on, you're in college and you're like, I want to be I want to be a sports reporter on national TV. And then you're like, why can't I do it next year? And it's like, no, you have a lot to learn, girlfriend. You have a lot to learn. And learning, I did. That sounds cheesy. I learned a lot throughout my years, and I make it sound like I'm about to like go retire in 2 weeks. I still have a lot of life to live. I still have a lot in my career that I want to achieve, like the freaking World Cup coming to the US in 2 short years. But that's my journey. And I love it. So now that you know who I am, and you know my journey, and you know what I've done and what I've been through, I hope you decide to keep listening to future podcast episodes. I originally started this podcast to be just conversations between me and people in this industry across all sports, because I love all sports. I love NASCAR too. I got NASCAR credentials last year for Richmond Raceway. I love baseball. I love hockey. I love everything. Okay. There's still a lot of sports that I want to go to, like a rugby game, ¿cómo se llama? Cricket. I want to go to cricket, a cricket match, which I think would be so interesting. So all of that being said, this is what you can expect from this podcast moving forward. It's going to be 2 months on, 1 month off. 2 months on, 1 month off, continue. So each like season will be 9 episodes. And it's going to be a blend of either me having conversations with people in this industry, or it's going to be solo episodes like this one. It can be either me kind of like giving advice to a specific group of people, or just people who want to get into the sports industry in general, stuff like that. Maybe I'll do one that's a Q&A session and I just answer any types of questions that you guys have for me. So if there's a specific topic that you would like for me to talk about, please let me know. I feel like while I still have a lot of life to learn and a lot to learn in my career, I feel like I have also learned a lot already in my 10 years in this industry, and a lot of advice that I feel like I can pass on to the next generation. Next generation. I'm still in this. I feel old. That I can pass on to the next generation of sports reporters that want to keep making waves in this industry the same way that me and my coworkers have.